the idea of inviting Fionn along for this webinar, guys, is just to kind of break down GPS, how it's kind of being used at the elite level, and basically and then we had a little chat beforehand. It's basically demystify it a little bit, isn't it, going to, Fionn, and kind of go down and don't complicate things really, and just kind of get to the detail really, and making sure you don't complicate things really, isn't it? Like,
yeah, 100%. So yeah, today I'm just gonna, as Michael said, is going to go into the nuts and bolts of GPS within Gaelic Games, and I suppose I'll share my learnings, my experiences over the last few years of how it works, and I suppose the impact it can have, and how to make it beneficial within your setting. So we'll get started with the PowerPoint. So just to make sure it works. So just firstly, I suppose this is some context on myself. As you may know, my name is Fionn O'Shea, and I'm an S&C / applied sports scientist, and these are just some of the, I suppose, organization and clubs I've worked with over the last few years, from a non-elite to sports clubs to elite organization and clubs as well. And again, as I mentioned, I suppose I'll be presenting on my learnings and my experiences that I have, I suppose, developed over the last few years. So that's pretty much it. And I suppose also to add to that, over the last year, I'm based out of Sydney in Australia and working remotely with teams back in Ireland. And I suppose I'll share with you how that works as well, from that remote setting, and how to make that, I suppose, effective and impactful to them organizations I'm working within. And also share with you, I suppose, it coming from the elite side of it, and also it coming from the non-elite, and how it actually is very similar in both senses, and the similarities, I suppose, that can be brought across, which is interesting as well. So what we're going to cover today is GPS is a valuable tool in the coach's toolbox, practical application of GPS, basic principles and considerations when using GPS, and the challenges and learnings I have, I suppose, faced over the last few years implementing GPS. Let's just get this going. So firstly, the GPS is a valuable tool in the coach's toolbox. So I suppose before we use anything, whether it be GPS or a different drill or whatever it is, we always want to know why we're actually doing this and the benefits from it as well. So I have created this Venn diagram here, and on this side of the Venn diagram, this is from more of a management point of view and coach's point of view, why we use the GPS within Gaelic Games or in any sports. And simply, it is just to review training and competition loads. That could be to evaluate it as well. Use as the training guide and prescription. So give you an idea of, I suppose, what to do to meet the demands of the game or the sport you're preparing for, or for the demands or the stimulus that's required to develop a fitness. And also injury management, rehab and prevention as well. From the player side of it, you're looking at player motivation and accountability. So it does drive player motivation intrinsically and extrinsically, holds them accountable to whether they're actually, I suppose, doing what they have to do or what's required for them for their position and their role. And also it's kind of as of recent, it's really starting to explore a new approach to athletic development. So instead of just going out running, I suppose, fence to fence or running laps, it actually gives players a specific, I suppose, target to meet per session, per week, or speeds as well to hit. So that drives intent there. And then the two of them coming together, I suppose this is essentially why we're using it within sport, is to seek obtain a competitive advantage over others, and also can lead to higher performances, higher leg performances at that. So I'm just going to move it on. So next part we're looking at is just some practical application of using GPS. So firstly, I suppose, before we start looking at GPS or bringing technology into it, like just some of my non-negotiables that I always kind of go back to, and I suppose I use a lot, is just keeping it simple and easy to understand, creating the link to the game. So for example, like I keep it short on the metrics. I only have a few metrics that I use, but whenever I'm presenting or explaining my data to the stakeholders, whether it be the players or the management, I would just try to relate it to the game. For example, the sprint distance, what does that look like in a game, and the impact it can have in the attack or defense. Same with your high intensity distance or your total distance, or your high intensity distance. So I keep it very simple, like, you know, how it's beneficial, what does it look like, and what does it look like in defense and attack. And when you kind of keep going after them all the time when you're explaining them very briefly, they start to buy into it a bit more, and they start to understand it and see the benefit of actually covering that bit more work within the sessions in preparation. Or if you're looking at a match itself, it kind of makes sense to them, oh, why their sprint distance might be so high, because they're making breaks from the half back line up to the full forward line, and they're breaking through, or they're penetrating the line through nice and well. Also, as I just kind of mentioned, there are metrics. So I'm picking metrics that are reliable and valid. So you like to think they're all reliable and valid from stat sports, but the ones that are kind of relatable to the game. So like in stat sports, I know you can get like in around 20 to 30 different metrics, but for my reporting, what I like to do is just pick off four metrics and just keep it nice and simple for the stakeholders again, and get them to kind of just focusing on that. And in the sessions themselves, whatever running blocks or fitness blocks I provide, it's actually kind of, it's targeting the metrics as well. So they can actually, when they're doing that block, then they can kind of understand a bit more, and they can drive on with more intent in them blocks. Feedback to the group is prompt, so it's nice and short. It's kind of quick after the session, as quick as possible, like within a day or two, and also it's used to build buy-in. So like the buy-in is, I suppose, something I'm always going after. I suppose it's the same as any athletic development, whether it be in the gym or whether it be on the pitch, but you're just trying to develop buy-in the whole time. So you're trying to sell it to them that it's actually worth using, and then from the buy-in, then that will also build like athletic development culture and a hard work culture, which is, I suppose, what you want to try to get out of it. And in consistency with your data analysis. So like just kind of keep it, like set up your system, set up your structure, and just keep it consistent, we'll say, for all the match reports and then all the training reports. So you're not confusing them, and keep it, I suppose, again, simple as well. And then it's just kind of easy for the stakeholders to understand. Next thing here, so before I go into all of this information, in the title here, you can see measure and evaluation training load. So what I like to do with the stat sports is I actually like to download an Excel and create my own data tables and visuals, just again to simplify it even more again for the stakeholders to understand it. So what I have, this is the training review or training, we'll say this is a data table and a visual from a training report. And this is me, I suppose, reviewing training firstly. So what I do is I'd often just download a data table from the metrics I've chosen, which is total distance. That's the amount of distance you cover. High intensity distance, that's the hybrid metric that sports use. And that combines your acceleration, deceleration, and your high speed running all into one. So it's a really powerful metric. Sprint distances, for me, it's any speeds greater than 7 meters per second. So I've changed the default in stat sports from 6 meters per second to 7 meters per second. And then your max speed as well. So that's obviously how fast you can run. And I just download an Excel and put it into my own Excel, where I can just create my own data tables and pivot tables or visuals. And as I said previously, I just like to focus on four metrics. So total distance, high intensity distance, which is a combination of your accelerations, decelerations, and your high speed running. So it's a fairly powerful metric. And then you have your sprint distance and your max speed as well. So sprint distance is, for me, I've changed it on my stat sports to enter at 7 meters per second. The default on stat sports is 6, so I just like to have a 7 because it's 7 is just nice and high, and it's usually with high speed running it's 5.5, so it's a bit different to that. And then you have our max speed as well, and then from that, then this is usually on my second page of my training report. So if they want to go into that in a bit more detail, they can go to the second page and just look at that then. And down on the bottom of this data table, you have your best, so that's best in the ground for whatever metric it is, so total distance and so on. And then you have your visual. So this is usually on the first page. So I'd have 3 visuals. I'd have this one with the sprint distance, high intensity distance. You have your players down here, and it's usually ranked from best to not so best. And then you would also have a visual for your total distance and your max speed as well. So that's your training review. So, and then what I like to do is try to prescribe from this. And these are my targets per sessions within the week. So these are absolute loads per session. So for example, on the match day MD, that means it's warm up and the total load. So I like to traffic like my week, whether it's orange, green, or red. Red being the hardest, the most intense and greatest day, and then orange being the second most, and green being light. And these are the kind of distances I like to kind of sit within these ranges to target. And then I look at the week then, and again, just keeping it nice and simple. And then when I'm communicating it back to my stakeholders, whether it be mainly the management for this side of it, is just trying to get them to sit within that, and then just kind of reassure them that we're on target for this week's load and we're consistent as well with it. So that's an example of how I would measure and evaluate training. Training sessions through my training reports. Again, very simple, 2 pages, more detailed on the second page, easier on the first page, and then focusing on metrics that are, I suppose, impactful for them in the game itself.